interrupted the normally uneventful counting of the Electoral College votes.
Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house. And as we reconvene in this chamber, the world will again witness the resilience and strength of our democracy. For even in the wake of unprecedented violence and vandalism at this Capitol.
And here's what happened earlier. Vice President Pence had said shortly before the protesters entered the Capitol that he has no constitutional authority to toss out votes, as President Trump had demanded. Senator Dick Durbin said about an hour ago that the president himself told the protesters to attack the Capitol.
This mob was invited to come to Washington on this day by this president for one reason, because he knew the Electoral College vote was going to be counted this day. He wanted this mob to disrupt the constitutional process which we are part of.
And here's what's happening now. Some of the lawmakers who had intended to object to electoral votes this morning changed their minds after the riots. That includes defeated Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler, who said, quote, "I cannot in good conscience object." A joint session of Congress delayed certifying the presidential election results by 5 hours today because of that violence that erupted.
Natalie Bomke is in Studio 32 with the chaos that unfolded. Natalie.
Corey and Don, despite a chaotic day with lawmakers fearing for their lives at times, they got back to business tonight. At this hour, they are debating to certify the election results. Thousands of Trump supporters taking over the streets of Washington this morning, voicing their outrage over the results of the 2020 election. The huge protest happening moments after remarks from President Trump at the White House.
Everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
But what happened next was all but peaceful. The massive crowd overwhelmed police officers, toppling metal barriers and scaling the side of the Capitol complex with ropes. At times, smoke could be seen billowing from Capitol Hill. Inside, a number of House Republicans were objecting to the election results.
We have to fix this.
The vote delayed by a lockdown and then evacuation of Capitol Hill. The D.C. mayor and police calling for calm amidst the chaos.
The behavior that we are witnessing is shameful, unpatriotic, and above all, it is unlawful.
Understand that there is no better agency in the country to handle First Amendment events. They happen on a regular basis here in our city. However, today's events were not representation of peaceful protests. Today, what we witnessed was unlawful, riotous behavior.
And just a few moments ago, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said that he and Trump, quote, had a hell of a journey and that he, quote, hates to see it end this way, but, quote, enough is enough. We got to end it.
Tonight, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer demanded that the people who broke into the Capitol be prosecuted. Schumer called them goons, thugs, and domestic terrorists.
And we cannot overemphasize how serious the situation was. This image really says it all. You're looking at U.S. Capitol Police trying to protect people in the House chamber. They had guns pointed at a door which had been barricaded. On the other side, Trump supporters were trying to force their way in. One person was killed at the Capitol today as the protesters fought with police and security. That woman was a Trump supporter from California.
Tia Ewing joins us with the latest information on her death. Tia.
Well, Don and Corey, at the height of this mob action and criminal activity, that woman was shot. We have learned her name is Ashley Babbitt. She is a 14-year veteran of the Air Force. She did die, and she was in D.C. She is married. It's not known why her husband didn't join her on this trip. Her mother-in-law says she has no idea why she decided to do this. What you're seeing is an angry pro-Trump mob outside a door trying to penetrate Capitol Hill. Inside, you hear a single shot. 14-year Air Force veteran Ashley Babbitt of San Diego had on a pro-Trump scarf. She was shot in the chest. She wasn't armed, but how she died is under investigation. The crowd outnumbered law enforcement. The D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief says officers were assaulted as the domestic terrorist used chemical irritants against the police.
They broke the glass. Everybody stay down. Get down.
Video from inside the House of Representatives chamber shows members huddling on the balcony. Police in a standoff with rioters outside the chamber door. Other pictures show the rioters making themselves feel at home, breaching the office of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. This man from Arkansas wasn't arrested, but instead was removed by Capitol Police. Republican Congressman Michael Gallagher of Wisconsin was inside as the Capitol was under siege.
This is the cost of countenancing an effort by Congress to overturn the election and telling thousands of people that there is a legitimate shot of overturning the election today, even though you know that is not true.
At the height of this violence, it is very important to note at the height of this violence, according to the police chief in D.C., he says only 13 people were arrested at that time. Live from downtown Chicago tonight, Tia Ewing, Fox 32 News.
And new tonight, one of the Trump administration's longest serving officials has resigned in the wake of this violence. Stephanie Grisham was serving as the First Lady's chief of staff and was previously her secretary and briefly the White House press secretary. In the wake of the violence, there are growing calls to impeach the president, including from Governor Pritzker. He says, quote, 2 weeks is too long for Donald Trump to remain in office. Activist Representative Ilhan Omar said tonight she is already drafting new articles of impeachment against the president.
President Trump is facing major backlash for not quickly condemning the protests as they spiraled out of control. Our political editor Mike Flannery joins us now live with more. Mike.
Corey, context is key, of course, so let's set the stage. The president summoned a big crowd. He was busy on social media for the past couple of weeks, summoning a big crowd to a rally midday today near the White House. There was a big turnout, and he told them, quote, "You will never take back through weakness." At that point, he told them to march off to the U.S. Capitol and demand that Congress not ratify Joe Biden's victory.
Democrats attempted the most brazen and outrageous election theft, and there's never been anything like this. It's a pure theft in American history. Everybody knows it, and we're going to have to fight much harder. Now it is up to Congress to confront this egregious assault on our democracy. And after this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
The president actually went back to the White House as his supporters followed instructions and laid siege to the Capitol building. Hundreds of the marchers appeared well prepared to break into and vandalize the historic structure, quickly overwhelming security forces, as Republican and Democratic lawmakers demanded Trump call off the attack, and after President-elect Joe Biden took to live TV to condemn it, Trump posted a brief video calling for calm but repeating false claims about the election.
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace.
While Trump made no mention of the day's bloody violence, Vice President Pence tonight tweeted, "We condemn the violence that took place here in the strongest possible terms. We grieve the loss of life in these hallowed halls as well as the injuries suffered."
To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house.
Now, for all of the talk about using the 25th Amendment potentially, there are some reports that some in the Trump cabinet may want to do that. Vice President Pence would play a key role in that. At 9:30, we're going to come back and talk a bit about what all would be involved in this never-before-used 25th Amendment, at least in this respect. I'm political editor Mike Flannery. Back to you.
All right, Mike, we'll see you in a bit. Thank you. Former President Obama released a lengthy statement tonight saying in part, quote, "History will rightly remember today's violence at the Capitol, incited by a sitting president who has continued to baselessly lie about the outcome of a lawful election, as a moment of great dishonor and shame for our nation. But we'd be kidding ourselves if we treated it as a total surprise." He went on to say Republican leaders can, quote, "continue down this road and keep stoking the raging fires, or they can choose reality and take the first steps toward extinguishing the flames. They can choose America."
President-elect Biden spoke this afternoon, calling the violence an attack on democracy.
At this hour, our democracy is under an unprecedented assault, unlike anything we've seen in modern times. An assault on the citadel of liberty, the Capitol itself. An assault on the people's representatives, on the Capitol Hill police, sworn to protect them. Let me be very clear. The scenes of chaos at the Capitol do not reflect a true America, do not represent who we are.
The president-elect went on to say we will prevail and that he will work to restore our democracy and plain, simple decency. Now, members of the House were seen evacuating the House chamber holding gas masks with senators, congressmen, and other officials under lockdown and sheltering in place. We saw their perspective of what unfolded.
Many sent messages to protesters via social media.
We were just told that there has been tear gas in the rotunda, and we're being instructed to each of us get gas masks that are under our seats.
The lawmakers say they were ordered to put the gas masks on while the chambers were locked down by security. Here's Utah Republican Congressman John Curtis.
It's not who we are. We're better than this. And please, let's use all of our influence to tone this down and get back to reasonable debate.
As we mentioned earlier, that many Republicans who initially planned to fight the election certification results are no longer doing so.
And we'll stand in recess until the call of the chair.
We'll pause.
Protesters are in the building.
Thank you.
And that's the exact moment the Senate had to take a recess. You can hear them interrupt the proceedings, announcing the protesters had actually breached the building. And stunning video shows demonstrators walking through the halls after getting access, some very calmly, some by climbing through windows. This is video from Statuary Hall. Eventually, the protesters appeared to be virtually everywhere. Here's one from the Senate chambers where a protester got to the chair, the dais, where the presiding officer of the Senate normally sits.
Tonight, we spoke with our local lawmakers to hear their firsthand accounts of what happened. Anthony Ponce is live with that part of the story. Anthony.
Dawn, yeah, I caught up with two Illinois congressmen, a Republican and a Democrat, who were both in the House chamber as this was all unfolding during that vote about the state of Arizona. And we talked to them about what happened from each of their vantage points and what they see happening from here.
Watching a makeshift barricade keep a mob off the House floor with guns drawn is enough to make you if anything, want all the more not to let them win.
This is an embarrassment, not just for Republicans, though it is. It's an embarrassment for democracy. And it's a sad day.
Quigley and Kinzinger were in the House chamber when a pro-Trump mob busted in to disrupt the proceedings. The two remained sheltered in place in the Capitol complex for hours while Capitol Police tried to clear the building.
I'm more worried about our country than our safety. I think that, we pride ourselves on a peaceful transfer of power. Well, it's not going to be peaceful, unfortunately, this time, but we still have to have a lawful transfer of power, and we have to go through what we're going through now.
You saw a clown sitting in the seat of the Senate chamber, obviously gunshots, guns drawn. I mean, this is the kind of thing you expect maybe to see in a former Soviet republic, not in the United States of America.
Kinzinger, a Republican, places blame for the violence squarely on President Trump.
Going out there and saying, we're all going to march over there right now. I mean, there is no doubt that he has convinced people of lies. That lie is that Congress just gets to pick the next president. And people took that and ran.
Also of note, amid all this chaos, Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth earlier told CBS that one of her quick-thinking aides was one of those people that were able to seize copies of the Electoral College certificates before Capitol Police officers evacuated that House chamber. And we're going to hear from more local lawmakers who witnessed everything coming up in our next half hour. For now, we're live downtown. Anthony Ponce, Fox 32 News.